organizational development, sorry. Yeah. Monica is the organizational development consultant, education technology at Alpha Plus. Drawing from her many years of experience, Monica supports adult education services providers to identify and implement technologies and tools that improve their work in the classroom and reduce administrative burden. She is skilled in applied education technologies, marketing and communications, and social media platform management. She loves using a brief solution focused approach in her coaching practice. In her work as a technology consultant, Monica applies her knowledge of mobile apps, digital tools, and customized websites to help LBS clients better support adult learners. She specializes in technology needs assessments, implementing learning and communications tools, organizational plans, and data tracking, knowledge sharing and exchange, and loves delivering workshops and webinars. Monica is also the proud recipient of the 2019 Leaders in Adult Learning Award from Literacy Link Niagara. Her coaching clients can take advantage of her technical expertise in the uptake and application of Google Apps, Microsoft suite of products, e-learning and LMS systems, social media and events tools, online conferencing tools, graphic design software, and e-commerce platforms. That's a lot.
Such a
Besides
long
this,
bio.
I just want to tell that we love Monica, and it's always a pleasure having her for the workshop. Over to you, Monica. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ambrita. It was a long bio, and 2019 seems like a long time ago. My goodness. It's a bit crazy, but thank you so much to everyone for joining in today. I can see the list and the number of participants is growing, so that's perfect. Just a quick check-in and making sure that everybody can see what's happening. So I will be speaking. We have two interpreters who will be helping us for the sign ASL interpretation, and I will be sharing a lot of screen. So one of the quick reminders as well is that if you're using a phone, a Chromebook, or a tablet, the switching of the interpreters may not be happening for you just because those devices don't have that functionality. It doesn't work as well. So just a warning that if something is a bit strange, it may be just because of the device you are using. So I'm going to start with sharing the screen and remind everyone that this is one of 3 sessions we are running. It is something we did a while ago, and we are repeating the sessions again. And my next step will be checking with you to confirm that you can see my slide. So just to confirm, you can nod. I can see the videos. Can you see the first page for Demystifying presentation?
Yep.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much for confirming that. The next thing I'm going to highlight is, let's see if this is going to work. What I want to show you is that there's a link in our slide, and I'm going to copy this link and bring it into our Google chat, or sorry, Zoom chat. That way, if you haven't had a chance to access the link before, or if you want to open it right now in a separate window, or if you want to save it for later, this link would allow you to access the slides during and after the session. So that way, it's a resource you can utilize for later as well. Okay. Now, first thing, quick session overview, and I know you do many of those, so I will try and make sure that we are going to be very quick with that. Let me just move a few things around so that I can turn on the laser for you, so that will be a bit easier. Sometimes also easier to follow the page with me as well. Here we go. So it's a series of 3 topics. First one today and 2 more in the following weeks. So February 3rd, February 10th, and February 17th. And I'm saying it's a second round because we did those sessions before in May. There's small updates to some of the tools, a few changes. For example, settings windows for some of the options or applications have been moved because Google redesigns and changes things as we go. For some of you, it may be just a refresher. So you may want to stick with us and participate in the session just to make sure that you're comfortable, or I may answer any questions you may have as you're using the tools overall. And I believe that the slides and recordings will be shared on the MTML website. I know the recording is on as well. If you're not comfortable with being recorded, feel free to turn off your video. That way we will just have an icon for you. And usually in the recordings, it's only the spotlighted videos. So in this case, it's going to be usually me or the interpreter that gets featured or recorded in the actual session, just as a note. But if we
Sorry.
are group
Sorry.
discussions, then everybody will be visible. Go ahead, Ambreen.
Sorry, I had to ask Sandra.
Yeah.
Is the other interpreter here?
Yes, I think, but she normally when she's off, she has the camera off, and I'll be doing the same.
Yeah, but I can't see her name. Sorry.
Oh,
Let's see.
maybe we had another technical glitch.
I know
Yeah.
she dropped off for a second.
Yeah, she dropped off. So
Yeah.
Okay, go watch.
Okay. I'll keep an eye. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you for checking. That's always helpful, especially for our interpreters, because it's a busy session. Okay, so now that we have a better understanding of the sessions and what we are going to do, a quick tip about our Zoom session. As always, you can turn on and off your videos. You can mute yourself just to make sure we don't interrupt others as we are presenting. Use the chat as much as you want to send us questions. I have the chat open and we'll be monitoring that during the session. If we can't answer the questions right away, we will pause or even follow up by email if necessary, if there's something we couldn't answer during the session. Reactions are always helpful. That makes it easier for us as well. And again, a quick reminder that it's being recorded. And if you're using mobile devices or a Chromebook, the functionality or some of the windows may be slightly different. Okay. Zoom tips, very quickly. Don't forget that if your tools disappear, you can move your mouse and they will reappear. So if you want to find the chat, it will pop up again. Occasionally, and often it happens for our participants when we are trying to go to different windows. In Zoom, on a laptop, desktop, it often opens in full screen view. So sometimes it kind of disappears or moves around. If you click on view in the top right corner, that often allows you to switch the view as well and decide if you want full screen or if you want to exit the full screen. So that way you can actually have other windows open as you're participating. And if you lose everything, your taskbar at the bottom very likely will have this tiny, tiny Zoom icon that you can click on and it should bring your Zoom back. So hopefully that will help you navigate and get comfortable with the tools. The exit full screen is a very, very handy tip. If you ever have that issue, go to the view in the top right corner, click on that, then you can utilize other windows and tabs on your computer. Okay, so don't forget about that. And the last one is about Alpha Plus. So some of you may know me and may have participated in many of our sessions. For some of you, this may be the first time. So hello and welcome. If you don't use Alpha Plus services, our mission is to really help educators get comfortable with technology. And it's to increase the learner access, enhance the educational experience, and really build up the organizations and help them grow. But really, there's a team behind this name Alpha Plus. So even though you see me here today, there's actually 6 or 7 of us working at Alpha Plus. And then quickly, I'm going to introduce our management team. So this is Alan, our executive director. Then you have me and 2 other colleagues who are organization development consultants. That's the coaches you're working with. So if you ever use our technology coaching service, one of us will be working with you to get you more comfortable with technology. We also have Tracy Mullins, who is running ENET sessions. So those sessions are slightly different than coaching. In coaching, we do hands-on group or individual training with technology. What Tracy is doing is a lot more practices, different theories, and actually using and thinking about literacy, learning, and teaching as a bigger picture. So this is her ENET, and this is where she brings instructors together to talk about that, to share resources and help each other. So slightly different angle. Okay. We also have Christine, and Christine is our colleague who is doing a lot of research. Even though we have the same titles, but we actually have different roles. So Christine is the one that may be connecting to you about strategies, what's happening in the field, and writing a lot of reports and a lot of research around literacy, digital divide, and technology as well. And I should mention, we also have pets. This is my administrative assistant. His name is Jesse. And his biggest role is to sleep on the chair next to me or mess up with my papers and sheets, because he usually likes to go for the printer and drop all the papers I have out there. But yes, we do have lots of pets, and we actually work and bring them to our office as we go. And we work from home. So if you look at the picture of our team, I'm the one living and working from Brampton. Tracy is in Toronto. Alan is in Picton. And then Guylaine and Alethea are in Quebec. And Christine is actually in Ottawa. So we are spread out as an organization and staff members through different locations as well. So I got this very long introduction, so I'm not going to go there at this point. But just so you know, I have been with the literacy field for a long, long time in different roles, different positions. I do miss going out to conferences, events, and connecting with all of you in person. I really do. I'm really surprised because when we were switching to working online, I thought it's going to be great, and it is, but I do miss those interactions and being able to visit the programs. If you ever need to contact me, my email and phone number are on the slide, so you can always reach out with questions, tips, anything you need. Feel free to contact me, and I will be very happy to help as much as I can. Okay. So let's pause for a second, and I'm going to very briefly ask all of you to open the chat in the Zoom. And if you can let me know, have you attended this type of session before with MTML or maybe with Alpha Plus? Anything around Google that we may have presented? This will just give me a better idea if you're revisiting today or if you're new to the topic that we are sharing today. So just in the chat, put them in. New, came here before, just so that we have some idea. Okay, so we have quite a few of no, so that's perfect. That means you're coming for the first time. And some of you have been here before. This is fantastic too. Okay, this is helpful. Perfect. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that kind of feedback because again, sometimes if you do something multiple times, you feel that, you're just repeating yourself. But knowing that this is a new session for you helps me because I'm trying to build those sessions as starting from scratch. So we are really going to take a bigger picture of what's Google Apps, how they work, how is Google Drive, and kind of narrow it down as we go through the sessions. So today we are talking about Google Drive and Google Docs. And after that, in the following sessions, we will be touching on other apps and then how they work together. Okay, so I really appreciate that feedback from all of you.
Sorry, Monica, it's me and
Yes.
Breen again. Although I'm the host, I can't pin or spotlight or add spotlight to the other interpreter.
Let me see if
Romy.
I can try. I'm able to do that. Is this spotlighted now?
Oh, yeah.
Yes?
Okay, good. Thank you.
No, no problem. We are co-hosting, so maybe it's just one of those tools that jumped between us. Perfect. So we are getting into Google Apps overall, and I want to start from there, even though some of you may be already using those apps or maybe thinking or even using it just privately. There are so many apps and different setups on how they work. When you look at Google Apps, usually linked to our Gmail accounts or our Google accounts, often cloud-based applications. And what we mean by cloud, it means that the server is actually sitting somewhere else. And we are using our browser and our devices to connect to that server and access different content and information there. They're often not on our computer. In the past, if you remember CD drives and programs you will have to install and download, those work slightly differently. But what's beautiful about that is that because they're cloud-based, I can open up a phone, tablet, Chromebook, laptop, desktop from any location and sign in into my applications and use them right away, which makes a big difference in accessibility, especially when we look at the remote learning and even our pandemic, when things were closing down and some programs were not set up to have cloud access to their systems. And that was causing a lot of problems for them. So this is one of those tools that helps you stay connected and work using different applications to work together, collaborate, learn, share, and so on. Now, the best browser to use with Google products is Chrome browser, because it's developed by the same company. So it works the best. It doesn't have as many glitches. You can still use other browsers like Edge or Firefox, but those occasionally may have a functionality issue. So if you are thinking about using Google Apps, consider using Chrome browser as your primary browser when you're using Google applications. Now, this is a crazy chart, but I really kind of want to go back to how we think about devices. And please forgive me for sort of putting it into boxes that way. But really, when we go back 5-10 years ago and think about technology, we would usually go to the office, sit at our desk. We will have a computer set up in front of us, managed by our tech team very often, and we will just go in and work and have potentially like something called a common drive that will be installed within the office, and then computers that are connected to it will save it, and we will be able to access that. But all that was in the office, whether laptop or desktop, usually connected that way. And as things progressed, we have moved to the cloud. So what we are doing now is we are taking our devices, whether it's laptops, desktops, or mobile devices, and you're using either browsers or applications to connect to the cloud to access the information. And again, the cloud is really basically something in a different location. So I always think of a building that's somewhere in Washington that has a lot of computers in there. We call them servers because they can process a lot of information. That's my cloud. So when I'm actually accessing my applications, very likely I'm connecting to one of those buildings. And knowing Google and many other providers, it's not only one location. They will have multiple locations as backups to make sure that even if one of those servers goes down, another one will be working and still giving me access to my tools and resources. So there's a huge shift from our offices just running and managing on their own to us relying now to other providers to give us access to the tools we are using every day, like our email, documentation, and so on. Now, when we think about applications and operating systems, some of you are using Microsoft products. So many of us are used to Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, and many other tools provided by Microsoft. Google Workspace or Google applications are basically a suite of applications or programs provided by Google. So I kind of think of them as two separate groups. Very often they're equivalent, or they can do something very similar to each other, but provided by different companies. And they compete with each other. So they try to come up with something new or something similar, so they again can provide similar services. Okay, now today we are going to be looking at Drive and Docs, but as you know, with Google products, there's a lot of them, a lot of different applications that you can be using, from Google Photos to Google Chat. Even YouTube belongs to Google, so it's part of a package. But what's beautiful about this whole thing is one login. So your Gmail address or your Google address allows you access to all those applications without having to go back and forth and switch your username and password. I don't want to do the poll, but I suspect that if I asked you how many passwords do you have or usernames, it will be hundreds at this point. So being able to reduce the amount of that, I think it's a good thing in a way. Okay. So now that we know it's usually one account and we have access to all those tools, let's just clarify a few things about those accounts because it gets confusing, and not only for you, but also for the systems you're working with. So some of you may have started with a personal Gmail account, and that could be just for personal purposes, or you could even have created a Gmail account for your program or for your organization, like literacy@gmail.com, just as an example. But those are, I call them personal accounts because they usually are provided by Gmail. They have the Gmail extension. So if you think about organizations, Gmail in itself is an organization, and it's giving you space to manage files and folders on their server that's managed with the Gmail extension. Okay. Now, there's organizations like nonprofit organizations, businesses, and other organizations they can set up something called Google Workspace. If it's a business, they will be paying around $8 per month for each user that they set up. If it's nonprofit organizations, we can all apply for Google Workspace that's free to nonprofits. And many organizations have chosen to go that route. School boards will be using Google Workspace as well, specifically for school boards. So those types of accounts, they look similar to our Gmail account, but very often at the end, they will have a different extension. So for example, Alpha Plus is using a Gmail package, suite, or workspace, and we have Alpha Plus in the name, but behind the scenes, we are actually using Google products. What that means is that when an organization sets up Google Workspace, it's almost like they get the suite, like a package, like Microsoft gives you a package, Google gives you a package, and that package allows you to issue emails to the staff, give them different applications to use, or even block some of the applications. So then the administrator has more permissions and options to manage your account. With Gmail account, you're linked and restricted to what Gmail will allow you to do. With organizational accounts, you are managed by administrator, so that person decides what you can do with your account. And there could be different permissions levels. So for example, if my manager wants, he can give me access to 2 out of 5 folders because he has power to do that, which is nice because sometimes we may want to issue accounts to our learners, to our students, to our volunteers. And by having that package, we have more control and options to do that. Okay. So now that we have covered a lot of that, and again, I'm really going in and narrowing down on the topics, I want to mention a bit more about Google for nonprofits. A lot of organizations are choosing that option because it's free. It gives them access to email accounts, to Google Drive, which is the storage space for files and folders, and so on. And that gives the organization ability to work remotely and manage their files and folders that way as well. It also makes a difference when we are sharing files and folders, how much information we can save, and for collaboration. So that stays within the organization as a package. So when you hear somebody talking about Google for nonprofits, that's what we are talking about, that package that an organization has decided to use. And if you ever have questions or need help with that, let us know. We take organizations from using fully Microsoft or other tools and exploring the ability to use Google Workspace as well. Some organizations switch all the way, so they now do everything in Google. Others do partially in Microsoft, partially in Google, depending on their needs. So there's flexibility. So let's see if I can launch a poll. I'm going to stop sharing just to see if that's going to make a difference for us so we can see each other again. So if I launch the poll, I want to find out from you, how many Google accounts do you have? Okay, is it just 1, 2 to 5, 6 to 10, or maybe more than that?
I can't see the poll.
Oh, and everybody else, because I can see everybody else popping up. It actually pops up as a separate window, Umbreen. Is it possible
No.
you have something overlaying it? Or maybe because you're co-host, you can't see it? I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
Could be. It's okay.
It was there,
Okay.
Okay.
Georgina. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not there anymore, but it was there, Monica.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results with you. Now, as I'm sharing the results, I just want to point out, not everybody filled it out. That's because some of you may have had issues, or we have interpreters with us who are not able to fill out the poll because they're busy interpreting. But you can see there's a few of you who have only 1 Google account, and that may be on purpose, which is totally fine. But many of you have more, 2 to 5, right? And then for me, the easy calculation is 1 personal, 1 work. That's already 2. But others may have a special testing account or another account that they will be using with the learners, something with the kids, or for other reasons. There could be more accounts. So that's why it's important for us to keep an eye Which account are we getting into? Personal, work-related, separating them, differentiating between them, being very clear, because each of those accounts has a suite of their own applications. So my personal account will have its own Google Drive, its own Google Docs, and so on. My work account will have its own. So I want to make sure that when I'm working with them, I'm clear what information I'm putting where and where I can find it. Occasionally, if I don't pay attention, I may accidentally put something in my personal account or personal information in the work account. So it's always, always important to know which account I'm going to be in, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing the results and let's go back to our slides. Of course, at any time, please feel free to ask me questions because, you know, I may just miss it, but I want to. Perfect. I just noticing a tip from Jim that there's much more memory in the workspace for nonprofits. Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate that. Yes. So if we get into the details, I think I will have it in Google Drive information, but just to clarify, our regular Gmail account, so the personal Gmail accounts, those that end with gmail.com, usually will have around 15 gigabytes of space. And remember, that includes your emails, everything in Google Drive, photos, anything you're doing. That's part of that account. In Google Workspace, if you or your organization choose to go that route, each individual account gets 30 gigabytes, so automatically you get more. And also you get something called shared drive. If you go back again 5-10 years ago, many organizations had something called like Y drive or C drive that was like a commons drive where we would share files and folders. Google provides that and calls it shared drive. And that one technically is almost unlimited. It's in terabytes. They will have restrictions more on how many files you can add per month, less on the size of those. So if as an organization, you have a lot of video files and things like that, you will want to be using that shared drive because it's not going to take away from individuals' storage space. Okay. I'm just going to pause for a second and thank Sandra and Romy for amazing interpretation and not stopping me. I know I speak fast, so I'm trying to be very careful. But as many of you know me, I get excited. So that's the reason. That's the reason for it. So let's talk about accessing our Google Apps. So we will get into our Google Drive fairly soon, but I want to just kind of give you a few pointers because with Google, and it's one of those amazing things, but at some point also overwhelming things, there's not only usually one way to do this. There's at least 2 or 3 ways to manage and access and enter into your accounts. So what I like to do is sort of think about where will be your starting point if you're new to Google. What can you do to kind of get used to it? And then from there, start using different options. And for me, usually it was Gmail account. Because I have been using Gmail personally, and that's usually where I would go. If you are in your Gmail account and go into the top right corner, you will often have either just a tiny icon or a letter or small picture of you as your profile. And next to it, you're going to have something we call waffle menu. It could be squares, it could be circles. Those shapes are slightly different between different accounts. I just call it waffle menu. If you move your mouse over it, it's going to be called Google Apps. And when you click on it, you will drop down and you will see different options. One of them will be Gmail account, other will be Drive, and so on. So that's one of the easiest and fastest way to get into your applications as you're navigating, straight from your Gmail account. Okay. Another way, and this is a good way to use or practice things again, just sort of to get used to it, is to use the address bar. So the top URL section where you can type or search for information. What's beautiful about Google, they actually use specific language for each application you're working with. So if I wanted to access my Google Drive, I can just type in drive.google.com into that address bar, hit enter, and it's going to take me directly to my Drive. I can do the same thing for Docs. I can do the same thing for Google Meet, Sheets, Slides, any application that I'm using, the name of it, drive.google.com, and it will take you in. So I have been using that as a quick way to access from the browser rather than the waffle menu sometimes. There is also other options and ways to get in, but what I also want to highlight is the mobile devices. So one of the things with the cloud service is the idea that you're not only using your laptops or desktops, you're also using mobile devices and logging in. If you have your Android phone, that is often set up with your Gmail account as well, which means through that and apps on your phone, you can access your Google Drive, you can access your documents and navigate that way. If you're using iPhone or iPad, you can install those on your mobile devices and access that as well. So it doesn't mean you're only restricted to your laptop or desktop, okay? When you're using mobile devices, you may have to install each of them separately, unless it's Android, because those usually will come pre-installed. But the beauty of it is syncing the data. So if I make a change in my document on the computer and go to my phone, within almost seconds, that document on the phone will be updated as well. Okay, so 3 ways to access that. Now with Gmail, and again, I'm talking about the gmail.com account that you may be using or organizational one. Jim mentioned the storage space, so that's one of the first differences that you will see. Pretty good with filtering spam, I have to say. It's one of the good tools. You can manage your spam, you can block things as well, but it's hard to get through for the emails to get in. You have an option to set up 2-stage authentication, and I strongly suggest you do that, because that one account, that email and password that you will be using, gets you not only into Gmail but into the other applications as well. So don't forget that, because whether you're using Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheets, you're always using the same login. So you want to make sure it's as secure as it can be. And the 2-stage authentication that allows you to verify your code by phone or additional email, that's to protect you and help you make sure nobody else gets into your account. Okay. In Gmail, you can organize your emails by labels. It's almost like sticky notes or tabs that allow you to really kind of access your email and have it sorted in a way. Very handy. In Outlook, we have it as folders. So slightly different vocabulary, but it still works and allows you to organize your content that way. And again, in the top right corner, you have that button that allows you to launch all the other applications. So if you're new, if you're starting, that could be a very quick way for you to just start from there and go on and access other apps right from your Gmail. Okay. Now, quick note, if you're working, for example, for Toronto District School Board or some other organizations, they sometimes will allow you to use Google Apps, but they may say, we want you to use Outlook for all your emails, but we also want you to use Google Meet, Google Slides, Google Docs. But they are not using Gmail to manage emails. They're using Outlook. So some organizations will actually turn off that Gmail feature, so you may not be able to see it. That's why the other 2 shortcuts, going into the address bar, or school boards will provide a special link for you, could be another way to get into your applications. For most of us, we can still use that Gmail option to get in. Okay. Okay, so we have 3 o'clock. We have 1 more hour left to look at the different tools. And I mentioned we are looking at Google Drive today and at Google Docs. So I'm talking a lot, and I apologize for that. This is just to give you a bit of overview. And I will be taking you live into some examples and some discussions around that as well, because I really want to make sure you see the benefits and what it can do for you. At the same time, I want to be mindful of the fact that it's an 1.5 hour session. So you're not going to become an expert after today. You will need to go in and practice and explore and potentially come back with more questions, because we all need time to get used to new interfaces and systems. Okay? So Google Drive is one of the most confusing and weird things that we deal with, especially if you're switching. If you are used to other systems like OneDrive, then it's kind of easier to understand. It's a storage container, a place where I can save my files and folders, images, videos, pictures. It's like a container or folder, which is just very big. And because it's in the cloud, it's not really sitting on our computer. It's again somewhere in Washington on one of those servers, right? And I'm logging in through my browser to access the information there and work with that. What's beautiful about Google Drive is that in it, within that one drive, I have an option to not only save content, but I can also create content. So it will have already built-in shortcuts for me to go in and create Google Docs if I want to create documents, Google Sheets if I want to work on spreadsheets, slides if I want to do presentations. So there will be shortcuts for me right within Google Drive. And because I'm signed into the account, anything I will be creating will be automatically getting saved into my Google Drive. So again, becomes a container that I work within and save and organize content right in that container. So you will see I use a filing cabinet as an example. Just if you want to visualize it, think of your Google Drive as a filing cabinet that's sitting in that space and you're virtually going in and accessing it. Now, one of the biggest issues with Google Drive is PDFs. It comes up over and over. It's not a problem to upload images, forms, whatever we want into our Google Drive. But the PDFs, especially fillable PDFs, are kind of crazy. So you can store your PDF files in Google Drive, which basically think of it as a USB stick. I can save a file in there. It sits there, but I need to bring it to my computer and launch it through Adobe Acrobat to open my PDF document. So with Google Drive, what they do is they allow you to click on a PDF file, open it, so you can actually kind of preview it and see what's inside. And that's how originally many of us use PDFs. We use them to actually save the content so it doesn't shift, so it can be open in different applications. But many people didn't actually edit PDFs, right? So now that we deal with fillable PDFs for applications and forms, it gets tricky because for fillable PDFs, to create them, you need a higher version of Adobe. So now programs need to get that version to be able to work with them. Technically, you can send them to learners and then should be able to open and fill them out. But what we forget, that it's under the assumption that the device they're using has a program that allows you to open and work with PDF files. And fillable PDF files require Adobe to work properly. Now, Google Drive, it's a program in the cloud. It doesn't have Adobe built in. So for many users, it gets difficult and confusing to understand that if you are working with fillable PDFs, you can store them in your drive for storage purposes only. But if you want to work with them and edit them, you need to download them back to your computer so Adobe on your computer can open them and you are able to work with them and edit them. So that comes back a lot. So I really wanted to spend some time on that. Some organizations install something called Google Drive Desktop, which is like a shortcut on your computer. It looks like a folder that will sync between your computer and the cloud. So you will be able to click on that tiny folder on your computer. It's going to open and show you all your PDF files in your drive. And when you click on it, it will open on your computer because it's like a desktop version of the drive. It doesn't work the same way if you don't have it. If you don't have that desktop version, you have to download it from the cloud. You have to bring it from the filing cabinet in Washington to your filing cabinet on your computer. Okay? Any questions around that? Going to pause. No? Are we good? Again, keep those questions coming. We talked about the devices. So I always want to kind of, and I really hope you visualize this with me, desktops, laptops, our browsers, things go to the cloud, then they can be opened on our mobile devices. When we work with mobile devices, they go to the cloud and we can open them with our desktops or laptops. It all is cloud-based. So really, a lot of times it's just trying to visualize, am I working with a file that's on my computer or in the cloud? If it's in the cloud, then I have to have a browser to be able to manage it. If it's on my desktop, that I can use programs on my desktop. If it's on my mobile device, apps on my mobile device. So try to visualize it anytime you're working with your files. It helps. It really helps. Okay? So the app itself, and Google Drive calls it an app, whether it's on your PC, desktop, or on your mobile device. Just because you can use them through different devices, they decided to call it app or application or program, if that's easier. When we go to My Drive and open it, we are going to end up with this dashboard or view of your latest documents you have created, files and folders on the left that you can access, historical information of what was the last file you opened, and other tools and resources. So this dashboard you can always access by the waffle menu in the top right corner, or just going to drive.google.com. And I'll take you live in a second, so we will be able to navigate there. I just want to touch on the layout, because whenever you're in your Drive, the first thing you should always check is which account you're in. My screen capture is a bit cut off, but this tells me I'm in Alpha Plus, so Google Workspace, under my profile name. That always is the first thing I check. So I'm not in my personal account and making mistakes looking for files. Then there is the quick access section. This is only preview of the last 4 or 5 documents or files you worked on. It's like a shortcut. So quick access to what you were doing latest, just in case you want to come back to it and you don't want to scroll and look through your files and folders. If this bothers you, or if you find it very confusing, you can actually go into settings and turn that off. You don't have to have it. Totally up to you. Some users love it, some users hate it. Okay? Now, if we go below, I will see my files and folders. Always usually folders first, just like we see on any computers, and then individual files. They can be sorted by name, by the last day modified. And if I look in the top right corner, if you ever try this, there is a switching option. So you can switch the view of your files. You can switch between grid and list view. So depending what you're used to, if you want list view, which is just the way we are kind of used to on our computers, we see the file name and they're kind of listed under each other, then that's how you want to leave it. If you would switch to grid view, each file will look like a box and it will have a bit of a preview of what the file is about. So images will be easy, it will be images, but you can preview them. But files and folders like PDF documents or other documents will have a bit of a text to show you what's in that document. So if it's easier for you to work with them visually, then you want to be in a grid view, just to make it easier to organize everything and look at it, okay? There will be a new button, and again, we are going to go through that very soon so that you will be able to create everything. But if you look any new applications and programs, the plus symbol is your friend. It usually means you're adding something, you're creating something new. So as we go through different applications, I think even in the Gmail on the phone, you will see there's always a plus symbol to start a new email. So that's where you can start thinking about, if I want to create something new in my Drive, I'm looking for a plus symbol. And if I click on it, I will be able to create a folder, upload a file. I can also upload entire folders. So as an example, on your stick, you have a folder with 50 images you have been using and you want to bring it in. You don't have to go one by one. You can say, I'm going to upload the folder with images. It's going to take it, upload it for you, done. So it can make a huge difference as you're trying to organize and manage your files. And as I said, it's not only the files and folders, you also get immediately access to your application. So I can click right on Google Docs and create a document by going through my Google Drive. It will take me to my Docs applications and I can start creating documents there. If you continue and click on more, of course, more applications from Google, because 10, 15 is not enough. There has to be more. But it is, again, all part of your account, and you pick and choose what you want to use. The one I like a lot is Jamboard, because again, you can go in there and when you work with your Jamboard, it will get saved in your Google Drive. So if you haven't used Jamboard before, it's like a board that you can share and everybody else can write on. Lots of activities. We will use it in one of our future sessions as well. Fun, fun, fun for everyone. And I mentioned that in Google Drive, you have My Drive, which is something, it's almost like your personal drive for this account. So if I'm Monica at alphaplus.ca, My Drive is stuff that I can save. I'm the owner of those items. I can share it with others, but it's sitting in my drive, almost like my folder. Then if your organizational account, only though organizational accounts will have it, you get something called shared drives. So shared drives are like external separate drives. Think of it as separate filing cabinets in which you can have files and folders, but you decide who has access to it. So our administrator can create 5 drives. Could be finances, could be board, could be HR. And that admin can decide who will have access to this drive. So if I clicked on my shared drive, I only will see the ones I have access to. There could be more than I see, but I just wasn't allowed to get in. But what's beautiful about those shared drives, it could be a shared drive called staff meetings, just as an example. When you put content in there, your agendas, your notes, and everything else, it is visible to everyone who is a member of that drive. For our team, it's the entire team. And we can all go in and update the files, go in and out with no problem because this is a shared drive. So the entire team has access to it. If you work on a specific project, let's say it's a digital divide project and only 2 staff members work on it, we could create a shared drive for that project and only those 2 people can access it. So shared drives are driven by membership rather than a folder that can be sent out to different people. Slightly different functionality, important in practice because it will have restrictions. Any questions about shared drive so far? Not yet? I know it gets crazy in real life, so bear with me. This is a bit of a capture of what we use at Alpha Plus, and this may not be the same for you, may not even be the same best example, but this is how we chose to use it. So you will see we have some drives that are external, and the way we think of them is this is stuff that we allow people from outside of the organization to get into. And then we also have Alpha Plus only organized by year. So we do it by our fiscal year, easier for the business plan, for the projects we are working on. Those are only staff members. Nobody else from outside the organization can access it. We may also have communications drive, so really like a filing cabinet that we have access, but we may invite an editor to have access to it. Some from outside of the organization, but not the same thing as our projects. So we may want to have a separate drive. So we organize it to make it work for us. And each and every organization will do it differently. Okay? So really, really important tips. If you are deciding to use the organization type of account where you have My Drive and where you have shared drives, be mindful of permissions. The organization can say anyone can access shared drives, which is okay. But really, for security and privacy, we really want to keep the shared drive more internal, okay? So if you're working with your learners and sharing files and folders with them, what I suggest usually is save those in My Drive, so you're the owner and you are allowing specific permissions, and everything else that's more internal or related to the team is sitting in the shared drive. It's important, and then that comes out in practice as you use it. Now, vocabulary. This is one of those crazy things. If you are starting to use Drive, those 3 in a row can be really confusing. So we have My Drive, then we have shared drives, and then we have shared with me. What's the difference, right? Especially the word shared. In the past, shared drives was called team drives, which I thought was a much better name for it because it reminded me that this is group or team related content. Okay, now they call it shared drive. Shared with me is a separate section in your drive that saves anything and everything somebody gave you access to. So let's say I send Anne or Ambreen a file document by email and tell her, here's a link to this document. I want you to take a look and review it. Ambreen is going to get an email telling her, Monica shared the file with you. She can click on the link and open that file. On the drive end, in my drive, what the system will do will say, oh, Monica shared a file with Ambreen. So Ambreen, to help you, we are going to put it in shared with me folder. So if you're ever looking for this file again, you don't have to go back to your email. In my drive, you can just go to shared with me and it will be there by date. So you will be able to go back and find those files. It's very handy because you potentially have had situations where somebody sent you a presentation or a document a month ago, invited you to take a look at it or edit it, and now you can't find it in your email. So if you go to my drive and you go to share with me, it's very likely going to be a lot easier to find there. Okay, let's have a bit of a discussion. Okay, so if you're using Google Drive now, and I know many of you do, because this is a reminder or refresher, or if you're thinking about it, I want to sort of check and see if you can share with me a bit more of how or what for would you be using your Google Drive. Is that okay with everyone? And I'm trying to see, I do not see the breakout rooms as an option. So let me see if I can see it here. I do. So I could enable breakout rooms and allow you to work with each other and kind of have a bit of a discussion and kind of come back and debrief me. Or we can do it as a group. Our group is not very big, so we could do it together. Any preference? Would you like breakout rooms for a few minutes just to try different things? Or are we okay in the same room here to share information? Any suggestions? See if you can unmute yourself. I want to check if you're able to, and just speak up.
Big group's fine with me, says Sonia.
Okay, and I can see same room. Okay, no problem. Some people like breakout rooms, some people don't like breakout rooms. So no problem. I can see from the feed that everybody is open to discussing it in the group. Okay, so if you're discussing it together, that's perfect. Anyone wants to start or talk about if you're using Google Drive right now, how are you using it? What's working, what may not be working, or maybe what your hopes are if you decide to use it. Any volunteers? And I'm going to stop sharing for a bit. It'll be easier for everybody.
Hi, Monica. This is Jenna.
Okay,
I'll
go
just
ahead, Jenna.
start us off. I use Google Drive quite a bit with my learners. I receive a lot. I've kind of got all my learners sending me their homework that way.
Perfect.
So that I can edit with them. But I am having trouble figuring out how to get them to give me access with editing.
Okay.
I am still lost on that, and I've tried it and I can't figure that out.
Okay, all right. So before we disconnect, question for you, when they share with you, do they share it with you by email or invite you to the document? How do they do it?
Everyone kind of does it their own way, both
Okay.
ways. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll get a link. I'll get an attachment. I'll, through email. Yeah. I think it's whatever people can do. They just do it.
Absolutely. And when you assign that homework or activity or something to do, how do you do that? Do you tell them create a document or do you give them some guidelines?
I actually don't assign homework through Drive. I actually will send it to them as an attachment because I know everyone has different systems. Some
Okay.
people are still working on iPads.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just send it through email and then they kind of access it through Drive and then write or do something and then they share it back with me.
Okay, all right. So that's a really good point because one of the activities I want to do with you today is just to show you or kind of talk about the sharing option and actually using, for example, Google Docs, where you could actually give the activity and have them write in the document. So that way you don't have to worry about access, but we are going to revisit access just so that we can maybe get them more clear or find a common way for you. Now,
Okay.
one of the things that I also want to mention with that is that when you assign work, some organizations also use Google Classroom. Have you looked at that?
Yeah, I mean, I work for TDSB and they won't give us that option because
Okay.
you'd have to have a student number or something
Okay.
like that. Yeah, so that's
Okay.
too bad because I know it's a really nice thing.
No, and that's and Exactly, right? Restrictions, right?
Yeah.
What permissions do you have? What the
Yeah.
programs will give you access to? And the reason I'm asking that in Google Classroom, when you have a class and you could enter your students, that allows you to take one document, let's say a Google Doc activity, and then distribute it to each student separately. And then they can hand it in with their name in it. So it gets automated, but not everybody is using that. But hopefully you don't have too many students. So a simpler way will work for us as well. But thank you, Jenna, for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Awesome. And then Jim, I think I saw you raising a hand.
Yeah, so we use among our colleagues, like for different classes, we put material in so different instructors can see it.
Yeah.
And right now we're working on a project, as perhaps some of you are, for literacy and basic skills. And so we can look and collaborate on the documents in there. And yeah, and then I use my drive just more for my student stuff. And
Yes, yes, perfect, perfect. And again, we all run into situations or issues. Like at Alpha Plus, we did have the shared drives open, and then our manager started locking or blocking permission. So it's like, okay, now I can't share it. So we have to find another way around it. So it's just coming up with the best solution that will work for you. So I appreciate that. Anybody else that may want to say something about Google Drive? How are you using it or
So-
planning to use it?
So Monica, the way we do it at MTML, the shared drive is kind of like our final placement of where we do finalized documents.
Yes.
But the share with me, it's like the collaborative place where Amberine and I, because we're the two in the office, virtual office,
Yes.
and we work on the share with me as being our drafts. And then when
Okay.
it's finalized, then we put it up to, our files or folders in the shared drives.
That's interesting. That's a slightly different way to do that. But if it works for you, why not, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Another way is if you, and we'll look at that in Google Docs, for example, when you create a document, you can tag somebody on the document. So let's say
Mhm.
you're working on a report and then you want Ambreen to take a look at it. In the notes, you can tag her. So basically
Oh,
put her
great.
account name and she will get notification that she has to look at this document. So that basically doesn't require you to email her to let her know that she needs to look at it. The system will do it for you.
Okay.
And then it will make shortcuts. So we'll get to
Yeah.
that fairly soon. And
Good,
that may
because
also make it easier.
that would be a great feature when we have a lot of things that we have to hand over for to look over
Yes.
for the board, where
Oh,
everybody kind of has
absolutely.
to, yeah. Oh, I'd like that feature if that could be
Perfect.
shown. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Georgina. Anybody else?
Hi, yeah, I'm a literacy practitioner for Ava Maitland, and I work in the classroom and also on eChannel, but I'm finding since COVID, we don't do a lot of face-to-face. We're heading back next week on a part-time basis again, but I find it very helpful in that I've been doing a lot of video tutorials that I can share, because before that, to upload a file in someone's email was just horrible because you just didn't have the space. So I find it's excellent for that, for sharing video tutorials. I just send them the link and everybody has no problem getting into it. We use it for various meetings and things as well with the board, but for me, in my day-to-day, that's where I've been finding it most helpful. And I'm trying to put together some user notes and things for Google Drive, because I'm finding a lot of learners, they don't have, say, Microsoft Office.
Yes.
So I just want to see what I don't know in there. So I'm going to attend and pull from there.
That's fantastic. And please, as we go and then we share ideas, feel free to suggest, because, in your case, it may be slightly different or come up with different solutions. One tip, and this is just something to consider, it requires a bit more time. When you say you put videos, do you upload video files into the drive and they go and access it? Or do you put them into YouTube?
I do a video just by Zoom. I do a Zoom recording,
Okay.
and then I upload that to my drive and I give
Okay.
them the link.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're using your drive as a repository. I'm assuming that most of the students have the devices to be able to open it. The only reason I'm asking or potentially making a suggestion, that extra step of uploading it to YouTube, which is still the same account, but it takes time to upload,
Okay.
allows you to create a repository of videos, which you can mark as unlisted. So what that means is that the videos are there. If you send your learners a link, they will be able to click on it, open it, and watch it, but it will be playing in a YouTube window. And as you know,
Okay.
YouTube has the tools for everything, right? Slow down, jump,
Fair
bigger window,
enough. Yeah.
smaller window, right? If it's in the drive, it will work, but it will still rely on some of the viewers or programs they have on their devices. So sometimes, if they're using older PC, they may need a player or something to be able for that file to work. And sometimes it takes a bit of time because when you think about it, if it's a larger video file, the system has to kind of download it to their computer so they can actually watch it, right?
Okay.
Where YouTube, what it does is you upload to YouTube server, they have their own systems to compress it, make it smaller, give you the player, and that way it's easier to watch. And you can then have links for each of the videos you have or organize them on a page or even Google Sites where you can actually pop the videos in and they just play them right in the page. So that will give you a lot more flexibility and then flexibility to watch the videos over and over if they want. Just as a tip.
Awesome.
We'll
Excellent.
get there.
Thank you.
We'll get
Perfect.
there.
Great. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. So if you have more questions or tips, please put them in the chat. What I'm going to do next, and I know this is basics for many of you, but I hope some of that may be filling in the gaps and also catching up those who are just starting or considering the tools as well. So I'm going to share the screen with you one more time. But this time, I'm on the section that says create a folder. This is in our slides, but I'm going to go live. This is just if you want to go back and review my steps or have a refresher on that because you missed something as I was doing it. I know sometimes it helps when we have interpreters because that step may be missed. So I always say when we create Drive folders and files, multiple ways to get in. This is my natural quick way. My URL remembers that I always go to Drive. So I can go this way, or as I mentioned, I can go through my drop-down menu and find my Drive in there. As a tip, not sure if you ever tried, you can reorganize them by clicking and dragging to be in the order you want. Usually they will be there if you're using apps, but they may be in a different order. So if there's a file or app you're going a lot to access, you could then just organize your own Google Apps list according to what you like. And as always, quick check which account I'm in. So I'm looking at my icon. As my tip, if you move your mouse over it, you will even see the email address. That's how I'm checking that if I go in, I'm in the right Google Drive. So I'm going to the one for work, monica@alphaplus.ca. I checked, and I'm going to go in, just clicking on the drive this way. Okay, what's going to happen? That big dashboard we talked about, right? So some of the files I have worked on recently as suggested, or quick access, different language for different users sometimes. One of the things about Google, if you work with Google products, the naming may be slightly different, or the location or something may be different. For some of you, those may be circles, for some of you, squares. Because as we are using all those apps, Google is also using or doing usability studies on us. They're checking which is more clear for you, which is better, and slowly they integrate and make everything a bit more consistent. So don't be surprised if mine says suggested, but yours says quick access or something else, okay? It's just, that's how Google does it. So some of the latest documents I worked on, list of files and folders. As I mentioned, we can switch the view. So grid view, folders are not as easy, but if I go to files, in grid view, I get a bit of previews. So it's making it a bit easier for me to see. I can't remember the file name, but maybe the preview will make things a bit easier. If you are used to list, just keep it as a list. And again, you will be able to access that. On the left, the tools we reviewed and the menus, so My Drive, Share Drives, and Shared with Me. I'm going to go to a new to create a folder. And this is just an example. I figured that maybe what I can do with you today is create a folder that I would use if I had learners. So I'm going to create a folder and call it Learner John. So I'm assuming I'm the instructor in a program and I'm trying to keep files and folders for John. Now, another layer that I'm going to think about is, will there be files related to John that I need to keep only for myself? So John cannot see it. And will there be a folder that I want John to have access to so he can see resources without me having to share it with them? Because I have that option. I can invite him to a folder. If I do that, he will see that folder in his own drive, and he will be able to see the files, access them, and work with them as well. So, as an example, I'm going to come here and say, I'm going to create another folder. I'm going to call it Monica only. So as an instructor, this is only for me. In here, I may have my notes on the meetings, or maybe I'm looking at planning something for him, and I want to make sure that he doesn't see it, but I can find it. If I wanted to have other instructors access to it, I could invite them to that, and they will have my notes and information, but John won't, right? So that's one folder. Another folder I'm going to create is shared with John. And actually, I can be even better, shared, Monica, and John. So you could be very selective or very specific on your filing as you're creating that. So those are folders. And I'm just clicking new and putting them in. If I go to shared, I'm going to think of this as a folder I will be sharing with John. So I can right click on it, and there will be an option for me to share or get a link. In either case, if I click on it, it's going to open for me dual window. The top part is the sharing by email address. The bottom part is sharing by link. And the difference is that if I put in John's email address here, the system will find him. I will be able to add, let me just use this as an example. So I'm going to use my email for this. Here, I'm going to assume this is John's email address. I can put a message for him saying, sharing this folder with you to access docs, okay? So that's the message. This is what he's going to read in the email. And on the right, I have an option to give him permissions. So if John is not comfortable with technology, and I'm really worried he may mess up a bit, it may be only giving him access to view files. But if we are learning collaborating together, I can give him the editing rights. So he actually can complete assignment and then save it in the drive. I can review it and back and forth. So we are actually now collaborating on this drive. And I'm going to send it. So the system is going to tell me, because Alpha Plus is an organization that's using Google Workspace, John or Monica, that email address is not part of this organization. So it's giving me a warning saying you're sharing this outside of Alpha Plus. That's why I'm getting this warning. I'm going to say share away. And now I have shared this folder with John, but this one is still my private folder. And if I'm not sure who can access, I can right click on share. And in here, I'm going to see my email. I'm the owner. And then whoever else I share it with. So if this was John's email, that's what I'm going to see. And I can see permissions he has. So from now on, anything that's placed in the shared folder, he will see. It could be learner plans. It could be activities. It could be workbooks. It could be quizzes. Whatever you want to give John or I want to give John, I can place it there for him to access and view. Any questions about that? Do you have any suggestions? Do you do something similar? No, not yet. Okay. So now I have this folder, and within that I have different things. If I wanted to bring in here content, so let's say I have slides that I want him to watch or review, documents, I can either right click or click new, and I can upload files or full folders with content if I have it saved somewhere else. So as soon as I do that, I can do file upload. The system is going to pop up message for me. What do you want to upload? Okay. Now I may have a lot of images, workbooks, documents, all kinds of things that I may want to use. So I'm going to see if I can find something that may be useful. This is just a report that I found. As an example, it's a PDF format. For you, it could be a workbook that usually you may provide as a print copy, but in those times today, You may not even see John for a while, so you may give him a PDF and save it into his folder. So I can just click File Upload, and the system is going to bring it here. And as soon as John goes to his folder, he will see that document there as well. So I can bring in files, folders, images, videos, as Kathy was doing, all that into my folders and organize them in any way I want. Okay? Fairly simple. When you're used to that navigation, it's not that bad. One thing that I really want to show you is how you can start integrating other documents into it, which is going to move us into Google Docs. Okay? So with Google Docs, we are used to Word documents. Just so you know, Google Drive handles Word documents very well. So let me see if I can find a Word document as an example. So I'm going to click on File. In my search, I'm just going to see if I can find that extension somewhere. Do I have any documents? Here we go. Brings in all kinds of Word files for me. Let's see if I can find something that will be more generic. Of course, this is all work related, so that's why you're seeing all kinds of different files. You will also see some of them are newer, some of them are older. Let's see. I'm just going to put letter of support. DOCX extension. This is Microsoft extension that you get when you work with the files. If I'm going to upload it here, the system will take it, and notice it's going to keep that extension. It's also putting W in front of it because it's a Word document. I do not have to convert it into Google Doc. If I click on it, it's going to open. I will be able to read it. I will be able to edit it. Okay, that's beautiful. Now, okay, problems opening Word documents saved in the drives. Jim, can you tell us a bit more? What's the problem exactly?
I wish I knew. I wish I
Okay.
knew.
Is it DOC or DOCX files? Do you know? Extension?
I don't know. I just know I do have a some kind of extension on it can actually change it into a Google Doc.
Okay.
But I discovered some of my colleagues' documents. I wants to open an open office, or it just doesn't open it right for some reason.
Does it shift things? Is that the problem?
Is it what?
Is it shifting content, like moving things around?
Yeah, it does shift it around.
It's
So,
often when it was created. So the newer versions of Word, no problem converting. If they're a tiny bit older, or if they have specific feature like word art, things that you can add through Word application, sometimes Google may have a hard time reading it. But the beauty of it is that you don't even have to rely on Word, or you could recreate some of those documents by creating a Google Doc. So I'm going to right click again, new plus symbol, or right click. Notice I can just quickly start a new Google Doc right from here. So if I go to the tiny arrow, I can go with a blank document, or I can even choose a template. And don't get me started there. Resume templates, scheduling templates, calendar templates, whatever you want, there will be a lot of templates there. So you can go there, or you can start with a blank document. Okay, so I'm going to go with blank. The system is going to remind me you're creating this in a shared folder. So if I do it here, John is going to see it. It's okay for me, so I'm going to do it anyway. But what I want to do here is I'm going to use this opportunity to create a very simple activity for John, with the idea that I don't want to be emailing it to him per se. If we are sharing a folder, I could have even a subfolder that will say activities to do, and then activities completed. And John and I, we can be moving those files between those two folders, working directly in Drive without engaging email at all. Or even if I send him a link to this document, he can come and open it, make changes to it, and Ambreen's question, notify me that he is done by adding something in the notes. And I get notification, go in and work with it. So rather than taking the document and attaching it, the student opens and works with it. If it's a Word document, they have to save it, upload it, all kinds of things. What I'm doing is I'm bringing my student to the document. The same document, we are both working within that document. So bear with me, I'm going to create a quick writing activity. First of all, I'm going to name it. writing activity for John, just as an example, of course. And the writing activity is going to be tell me about your family. Okay. And I can say write in the box below, and I'm going to explain why in a second. So I'm going to go into insert, and I'm going to add a table with just one cell. By doing that, I'm getting John used to the idea that there's a field I want him to write in. So then I'm leaving it like that. I have the prompt. I'm going to bold it so it's a bit nicer. I can save it in the drive. But if I want to, I can click share. And notice, as this is popping up, again, I can invite John by email. So if I do that, inviting John by email, remember, it has to be a Gmail account. It cannot be Yahoo. It cannot be Simpatico. It will not work. John has to have a Gmail account so he can work with Google products. That's why it has to be a Gmail account. Just in case, if he doesn't, some cases, some students don't even want to or don't know how to use Google products. It can be as simple as me going to get the link and telling John, here is a link, click on it. It's going to open the document for you. You can work with that. Let me know you're done, and you don't have to do anything else. So you can really start your students slowly working with documents without exchanging, emailing, and doing all kinds of difficult things at the beginning. So first step, if you're looking at my link, it says Alpha Plus Center on it. Because we are using organizational account, automatically it says it's restricted only to Alpha Plus. So I need to change that before I send it to him. Otherwise, he won't be able to open it. So I'm going to click change, and it's going to give me a bit of options. I'm going to get a link, but it's still restricted to Alpha Plus. There is an arrow. I can click on it, and I can choose the option, anyone with the link. Now, that said, another thing I can do is viewer. So viewer is only viewing, but I want John to come here and actually work in this document. I'm giving them extra options. So commenting, that's not it, unless I just really want him to comment on something. I'm going to make John the editor. So now that I set up my permissions, I'm going to get a link that is shareable with John or anybody else who has this link, and the person with that link can edit. So I'm going to copy the link, I'm going to hit done, and I'm going to paste this link right into our chat. I'm going to see if you are able to open it. Let's see, let's test it. So if you have a second, click on the link, and if you're watching my screen on what's happening, I start getting icons showing up on top. Right in this corner here, I'm seeing different icons. That basically tells me different users are coming in. Sometimes it will just say anonymous. Sometimes it will give me the name of the user if they're signed in, and they can come and write on my document. So imagine in Zoom, we are together. I share this document with John, and I'm watching John fill it out together. We are just sitting right here in the session, and he's filling it out. So any brave volunteer, if you want to just write a sentence or two within the box is just to get them used to writing in boxes. So when we give them activities, they know where to write. If it's only one person, they could just write below. That's another option for that. Now, as you're writing, you're noticing that potentially you may be writing over each other because the system allows for that to happen. So the beauty of it is that you could do activities with multiple students where they can come in and write with you, collaborate together, create stories together, because you are in this document at the same time. Okay, so one sentence will be good. That's perfect. Thank you for participating and helping me with this activity. There we are. You just completed the assignment. I didn't have to even do much more. I didn't have to engage you in email or anything like that. So live sessions, this is perfect. If I wanted to, I could share that link by email or invite by email. John can fill it out. Now, how will John tell me he's completed? So he could just send me an email back saying, I'm done with the document. But here is the tip that will also work for you, Ambreen. So anytime you're in the document, as you are moving your mouse and clicking over it, occasionally you will see options here to add comments or suggest edits. So suggest edits, if I was the instructor, I could come in and make changes as suggestions. The system will highlight it, and I have a conversation with John telling him, this is why I wanted to make that suggestion. There's a typo. I think you could expand on it. I think you can add another paragraph. So we can, again, use the tools to collaborate with each other. But if I add comments, John can do that, I can do that. So Ambreen and Georgina, you could be doing that. As soon as I start typing an @ symbol, I'm tagging somebody. So if I tag, I could tag myself, but I'm going to add tag my colleague, let's say, Alithia. She's going to come up as one of the users. I'm going to select her, and I could even assign to Alithia. I don't have to. Even without assigning, she's going to get notified that there's something she needs to take a look at in this document. So that can be a way for you or your learners to notify you that there's a change made to the document. You need to go back and open it. This, as soon as I hit assign, she's going to get an email. She's going to be able to open it and come here. Or when you get that email or your student gets that email, there will be a link in the email to get right into this document and work with this document. Is that making sense? Yes? Okay. I can see the thumbs up. A few more amazing tools you can use. So very simple, very basic activity, but Google has a lot more options. So let's say you go back to the office, you have this amazing activity, but now you really want to use it as a PDF that's printed. You can click on File, and you can download this document as a Word document, as a PDF, and have it printed in any way you want. So you can convert it back to a different format fairly quickly. What I also like about Google, and a few tools that you may like, is the insert option. In insert, I can bring in images, and not only from my computer, I can search the web, which is awesome. I don't have to have images saved on my computer. I can, talk about vacations, so I can look for vacations. And if there's a nice picture with the beach, I can just drag it in. And now I'm illustrating my document with pictures. Again, not downloading, just dragging and dropping content into my document to make it easy and practical for students. It could be an activity for them. Add pictures to the document to illustrate your vacations. Where did you go? Where do you want to go, right? So you can really build on using images with your students, illustrating the activities with them. So insert allows you to bring images, tables, drawings, charts, and a few other options. Another tool that is absolutely amazing is voice typing. Give me thumbs up if you have used voice typing before or tried it. Not yet? Okay. So a few of you. So I'm going to do a bit of voice typing, and I'm going to assign it one more time just so Jenna can see how I did that. So let me do voice typing first. I have the picture selected. I'm just going to put my cursor somewhere else. And on the left, I click Tools, and I selected voice typing. As soon as I did that, it gives me this icon on the left with option to speak. So remember, you have to have microphone so the system can recognize that. But as soon as I do, it's going to start writing and typing anything I say. And with my accent, it can be pretty good, period. Can we add comma to it? And you can see I can add punctuation by dictating it, and the system will be adding everything together. So if you are looking for a way for your students to quickly write, they can. You could write your own reports or notes by dictating them. The system will take that. It's one of our favorite features in Google Docs. What do we think about this one? Thumbs up, maybe, not sure. Okay, I like it. Again, there will be some typos. You may need to go back and kind of adjust it, but overall, it can be a fantastic tool that can make your life and your students' life a bit easier. The homework could be edit whatever you just typed up or the system typed up for you, right? Yeah, no, Carrie, no, it's built in. So for that tool, go to tools. Voice typing is one of those tools. There are many other tools that are amazing, like translation and a few other things. But for students, this is a good one, and also for you. Perfect. So this is one of my favorites. I'm going to go back one more time just to jump back to sharing. So let's say I worked on this document and I want to notify someone. I want to, so that they know I made changes, like John wants to notify me. When I move my mouse over the screen, nothing happens. But if I move my mouse to the edge of the document, I get this blue add comment option. If I click on it, I can tag someone with the @ symbol. So @ symbol basically starts looking for email addresses of people that you may be connected to. So I can start tagging Alethea, Alan, if I want my manager, Tracy, if I want another colleague. It will start looking for everybody I'm connected with and finding them. So if that's the address I want, I can select it and they're tagged. I can assign it on top of that and hit enter. So as soon as I do that, that system will send an email to Tracy to let her know I assigned something to her. So she comes back and takes a look. And I can put a note saying, Tracy, can you review? I'm done checking it. Can you make extra notes? You can add your own comments. If you want to see history of it, there's another icon right there in the top corner that says Open Comment History. And if I click on that, it will allow me to see the comments. So see how it says Assign to Alethea, and there's a check mark there? When Alethea is done, she can come and check it off, and it's going to disappear from this list. So she will let me know she has reviewed it, but it will be still in history for me to find if I want to. So we can communicate with each other right in this document again, not right in the text, but through our notes and comments. Collaborating on one document without having to send it back and forth. Okay? Now, very mindful of the time we have together. So I covered inserting, we did the voice typing, check it out. Those are some of my favorite features, but we can continue in our next session. So what I hope to do in the next session is we are going to basically restart with Google Docs. So go try different things, try the tools that exist in there, see if your assigning or commenting works. We use this when we create our newsletters. So we write the content, then we have the team come in and we tag everyone so they can come and add comments. The person creating the content reviews everything, accepts or declines suggestions if we make them, and then now the whole team has just reviewed document and it goes for the next step. So it really has made a huge difference for us. We are never getting lost in which version we are, which was happening to us if we were using the documents as attachments. So it makes a big, big difference for us. Any questions? Did I miss anything? Are we good? Yes? So quick, brief overview, but I hope it gives you good starting points or fills in some of the gaps. I know going back to, oh my gosh, Jenna, if you're thinking of working with your students, see if that assignment will work with your students. Maybe they can tag you and maybe that will help. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I was
All right.
using that
No.
assign feature as an editing feature, so I was definitely doing it wrong before.
No, so there's this feature right here, which is if I move my mouse over here, just one more time. So come on, sometimes it doesn't want to pop up, but I know that if sometimes you have to select the text, two of them. So the blue one is commenting, the other one is edits, which is also beautiful because they suggest edits. You can go into the text and now add text in any way I want. But if I click away, it becomes green and puts a note that I made a suggestion. And you as a teacher or your student, whichever way, you can go both ways, you can come and say, okay, I accept it. So then it becomes part of the document, or if you decline, it gets deleted from the document. So it's in Word, we had that as well, the option to suggest edits. But in here, with our students, it could be used for different purposes.
Okay, and that gets sent to the learner, correct?
So it gets sent to whoever, when you're making suggestions, I don't know if it gets sent unless you again tag them. So the tagging needs to be done so that the system knows to notify the person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
another tool, spelling, I'm just quickly checking. Bear with me for 1 second. I know there is not add-ons. I'm trying to remember if Google Docs has notifications. And I don't remember, but I'll check for our next session. So
Okay,
if you're able to enable notifications, then you will know. Any changes made, you will get an email, right? But I find that assigning is easier because it's just a bit more selective, right? So
okay,
rather than getting 15 messages that John is making, 5 changes to the document, you will get
Mhm.
one only when he assigns it to you.
okay.
Okay? All right.
Yep.
So perfect. I want to thank you all for participating today. You have the slides, but as you know, we all have to do surveys, right? So I hope just before you log out that you're able to jump in and fill out the survey. So I'm going to copy this link. It's my copy right here, paste it in our chat. And that way we will start gathering feedback from you. If there are any issues with the survey, let us know. Again, it's also in the slides. So if you don't have time to do it today, you can do it tomorrow or some other day, but we will really appreciate if you can do it as soon as possible so you don't forget about it. Okay. And on that note, I'm going to stop
Monica,
sharing.
I'd like to thank you for the first of the 3 sessions. This is great. It's always something that I thought I didn't know, and here we go with some more tips. It's wonderful. Thank you.
No
And I'd
problem.
like to thank our interpreters as well. So Sandy and Romy, thank you so much for your help today. And we'll meet again a week from today, same time. So
Yes.
on the 10th.
Yes, absolutely. So bring in questions. If you're playing or trying different things, bring in questions, and then we'll start with that and then continue with the other applications that you can start integrating and using with the tools as well. Okay? Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Bye-bye.